Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to be with you. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving weekend, and I had a really good one. My entire family got together. When I say entire family, my parents got divorced when I was 4 years old. I don't remember ever having a Thanksgiving with my parents in the same place, and I got to have that this Thanksgiving. So I'm blessed, man. I'm blessed. I'm hoping that you're blessed too. I hope that you're grateful for things that you have in life, and hoping that you're taking advantage of a world of gratitude, man, because it's powerful. A world of gratitude is powerful to propel everything forward in life that you want. And I'm grateful for you guys too, as well. I'm also grateful for you. So welcome, guys. Welcome to the call. Whether you're jumping in from YouTube, wherever you are in the country or in the world, welcome. If you're on the Zoom call, good to be with you on the Zoom. Let's get started, guys. Really quickly, we're going to have a really great conversation today. Hopefully you get like when you go through the things that we're going to go through today, like consistently, I do know 100% that you will have an access to improve performance in your trucking company, to a lot greater ease and peace of mind, and definitely clarity in what you're doing. So I'm excited to be with you in this conversation today, and let's go. All right, this is me, Cheston Bolgen. Who's hosting this is By the Bush Consulting. I'm the founder, CFO, um, trucking CFO, tax strategist, your accounting superhero. That's me, Cheston Bulgin. You could reach us at 888-4BTB now. That's 888-428-2669. You can also reach us online at youraccountingsuperhero.com. You could reach me via email at cbulgin@youraccountingsuperhero.com. And definitely, guys, if you haven't followed me on Instagram, you want to follow me on Instagram, you can follow me at Your Accounting Superhero. Okay. And we do basically what we do is fractional CFO work for trucking companies. All right, I'll say that. I don't normally say it like that in these sessions, but that's basically what we do. We have your back when it comes to the accounting, the systems that you use to track and record your business, the analytics and performance analytics, like the KPIs and everything that you would need to understand in order to know exactly what direction to go into. That's going to give you the most bang for your effort. That's what we do. We help you out with that. We help with the technology. QuickBooks Online is a thing that we use a lot with the financials. We also help out with organization when it comes to your trucking management software, how to run your business. And of course, we do the tax strategy and the tax planning and fleet advisory. That's to sum that up, it is really a fractional CFO type work that we do for people like you. Okay. And if you haven't joined us yet in Truck Profit Academy, you want to do that as soon as possible. We have less than 30 days before it's going to be a paid community to be a part of this and to really have access to high level content. We have a mastermind that's being developed right now. And inside of that mastermind, there's going to be a few people like you, just same mindset, of like-minded individuals that will help um, you get to the new levels that you want to get to inside of your business. If that's you, if you're somebody who's always looking to get to the next level and what you're up to, that's a great place to be. You can join us at the Truck Profit Academy at truckprofitacademy.com. That's www.truckprofitacademy.com. You want to go and get registered there. You can do that now up until December 31st for free. And if you haven't taken advantage of our free profit and cash flow analysis, you can still do that by going to youraccountingsuperhero.com/book-and-appointment. And the idea here is to stop wasting time and increase profits and cash flow as soon as today. I've been on conversations with people and they have blind spots. People just like you going through life in this area just like you, and they have blind spots, which means they just don't see, and they didn't know they didn't see some of the things that they could take advantage of, either stop spending so much energy, resources, time, and effort in this one place that was not producing, or um, step into areas in which they did not realize they could step into in order to produce a improved outcome, an improved result in what they're doing. All right, so that's that. So you want to hop on this call by going to youraccountingsuperhero.com/book-and-appointment. And a quick disclaimer before we get started tonight, guys, the following is for educational purposes only and is not to be considered financial accounting or legal advice. Please consult your tax accounting and or legal professional for specific advice. Man, we got through that. Do that every time. You know, I get, I feel I get better and better when I do that. Oh man, grade eight transportation. I see you on YouTube. Good to be with you. All right. Welcome, welcome. And it's really good to get with you guys today because it is the beginning of December of 2024. And one of the things that we've talked about this year is planning when it comes to taxes. And I want to ensure that we're moving into the realm of overall planning overall inside of your trucking company to make sure that you have access to the next levels in your business. Now, like I said, if you're here in this conversation and you're somebody who wants to do that, somebody who's looking to get to those next levels in your trucking company, in your business, then this is the right place to be, all right, at the right time. And you're doing the right thing because there are things like blind spots I talked about earlier tonight. Blind spots are a real thing. We don't see some of the things that we don't see, and we don't even know we don't see these things. And when we get around a conversation like this and we start talking about um, topics like this, and like I'm going to get into detail in a few minutes about like how to go and break down a, income statement and performance analytics, like to see exactly where it is that you can improve your tracking for one, to make sure you're getting the truth in financial reporting, and then take that information and utilize that to get to those next levels. Like where is it that you've taken your business so far this year? What can you see that you have done this year that really works and what has not really worked? Where can you focus your efforts in the year to come? Like really, what do we get to lean in on in 2025 to give you that high probability outcome that you're getting to that next level in your business? Now, I say this a lot with our team internally is the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. The biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. We're constantly declaring gaps. And what that means is that there's a there's a place we want to get to versus where we are. All right. So when I say that, hey, this is where we're headed. All right, we want to get to this destination, be it a financial destination, be it an impact destination, which means how much we are able to contribute and make a difference for the people that we serve, whether it is a stewardship destination where we get to look at how much of a contribution we are in the environment and the economy as a whole. Like wherever that is, if I'd say that this is where we're headed in life, I by definition I've declared a gap because I'm not quite there yet. And inside that gap is that room for improvement, and that's the biggest room in the world, is a room for improvement. If we look, there's always a place that we can go to work on to get to another level in life. And I don't know about you, but when I think about that for myself, it is enlivening. It's empowering because I constantly get to level up. I constantly get to new levels in life, which is the exciting part of the journey. Guys, bear with me 1 second. I have a dog. I left my dog outside, so I'm gonna go out here and let the dog in. Give me 1 second, guys. All right. Oh, I hear my wife. She says she's gonna grab this dog. Okay. All right. Now, good. That's complete. So, guys, so what I want to do with you today is I want to start talking about some real things inside of this, like that whole improvement process, because we're going into the new year and we want to understand, well, first of all, I would like you to believe that there is a way that you can go out here and get to another level in what you're doing. Okay. It's going to take that. If you think that this economy and the way that it is something that's going to hold you back, if you think there's no opportunity in what you're doing, then you're going to be right about that. Okay, you're not going to really see, and we're going to have more of those blind spots that I talked about earlier on, and you're not going to be able to see specific actions that you can take to get to another level. And there are people out here in the industry that are crushing it, guys. They're doing well. If you're not doing as well as what you want to, I want to invite you to take on the ideology that you can actually transform that. You can get to another level in this, in which you can do extremely well beyond what you thought possible in this industry. Okay. Now, if you take on that mindset, if you take on that understanding, then it's only a matter of the actions thereafter that deliver that next level outcome. So when I speak about this, guys, it does give simplicity. And when I speak about this in this way, it gives access to simplicity, which is the greatest thing that you give yourself, because now there's a clarity that becomes a part of how you operate, and you just go and execute day after day. And then you honor that execution, which means you're consistent in terms of taking those actions once you set those actions. And then once you do that, you look up and all of a sudden you've achieved that outcome. And or you shifted things in such a drastic way where you have that outcome um, here for you right now, or at least you're that much further, that you're that much closer to the outcome that you're seeking. All right. So how do we do that? Like I love the what we do with people because those blind spots I talk about, they become they get removed when we shine the light on things and we get to see exactly what it is that we're dealing with. So I want to talk to you today really closely. And guys, I really do want some engagement from you today. I'm going to request some engagement from you today so that you get the most out of our session today. And um, what that looks like is that, I'm going to ask you to put like maybe one in the chat. Just do that for me. If I do that, ask you to put a one in chat when you're responding to things. If you have questions about what I'm going over in this session, I really do want you to put those questions in the chat. I want to get to those during the session tonight so that when you walk out of this session, you'll have an access to something that you can use, that's tangible, that you can deploy inside of what you're doing. All right. Does that sound good, everybody? All right. Hopefully that sounds fair. Now, let's take a look. I want to share something with you guys, okay? And let me do this. All right. First thing I want to share with you, let me share my screen. I'm going to share with you some financials, okay? Now, one of the things I also want to have you realize in this conversation, what we're doing here is we're going to start assessing performance. We're going to start assessing performance. If you weren't in this conversation with me last week, we talked about things that you can do this time of the year to make sure you're planning for success next year. All right. And you're actually assessing how successful you were this year. Okay. Really, it's in that other order. You're assessing how you were successful, how successful you were this year, and then assessing how you can improve success next year in 2025. Okay. And what I want to do here in this part of our conversation is talk about how you can assess performance in your trucking company. Now, this is Knight-Swift. Okay. All right, this is Knight-Swift. They're a publicly traded trucking company. You guys, most of us know Knight-Swift. If you're in this conversation, you know Knight-Swift. Okay. And if you're familiar with Knight-Swift, just let me make sure I am fully visible here. I'm gonna take this down for a second. It takes something to be able to be a publicly traded company, right? It takes one, having the systems in place, like fleet-wide systems in place in order to track everything, because the main part about being a publicly traded company is transparency and financial reporting. And because investors want to invest in you as a publicly traded company, and they need to understand 100% what they're getting into with clarity. Now, this may not be you right now, right? You may not be a publicly traded company, but the idea is for you to operate even at the level that you are in a way where you have that level of transparency and financial reporting so that you can do a couple of things here. Number one, you want to understand, um, financial key performance indicators in financial metrics. Key performance indicators in financial metrics, which give you access to operational performance. It gives you access to operational performance. All right. So like the numbers never lie. Even when even when the numbers are not there reflected in like the truth in financial reporting, it's still telling the truth in some way, shape, or form. The numbers never really lie. But you want to have your numbers in a way, like when I say this, you want to track your operation in a way where you have complete 100% clarity on what the financial metrics are in your business, like what you're spending money on, the inflows and the outflows, like spot on to a T, like without question, 100% accuracy in financial reporting. You want to have this. Okay. Now, once you have this, that'll give you great insight into, okay, well, what is actually working here? Which is the link into operational performance. Now, if I have that link, then I can do anything that I want to in the future. It means I can dial it in now and say, I'm not going to do any of this other stuff that I'm wasting time with. I'm going to start doing the stuff that works for me over and over again. I'm going to build this up until it's a dominant cash king inside of my business. And then I'm going to move on to the next thing after I build it up to that degree. Now, if that makes sense to you, I want you to put a number one in the chat if that makes sense. Number one in the chat if that makes sense. Okay. Now, as you guys are replying to that, thank you guys for responding to that. Now, as I'm looking at that, in terms of, getting the truth in financial reporting and understanding how to read this, there are a couple of things that we want to look at. All right. Now, revenue is the number one thing that we're looking at when we come to a business is a top line item in your business, revenue. Right. So a lot of people get into the trucking industry because the revenue is like pretty high. And people say, hey, man, I can make a whole lot of money in the trucking industry, because people have money coming in, like, more so than they would get working the job. It's a lot. I remember when we first started running our trucking company, the revenue was pretty decent. We were doing it like in the beginning, like when we started scaling up, we did it somewhere around $80,000 to $100,000 every single month, in the trucking company. It was like, man, we're bringing in a lot of revenue, right? This looks fantastic. This is awesome, right? And at the same time, there are a lot of expenses to go along with that, that revenue. So it's misleading when we think about how much money we bring in. We're not taking into consideration. Well, what is it that's outflowing? How are we managing the money when it comes in? Okay, but nonetheless, revenue is king. Okay, it's the number one thing that we want to look at. All right, and how do we want to look at the revenue? Okay, well, first thing we want to do is like, well, look at how much revenue it is we're bringing in overall, because this is like we're looking at this report here for Knight-Swift, and basically what we're looking at right now is what we call an income statement. This is what we're looking at right now, an income statement for Knight-Swift. Okay, now this is also called the profit and loss statement. That's another name for it, profit and loss statement. And you'd be amazed at how many people that I speak with who are in the trucking industry that don't have this put together for themselves consistently and reliably. And it hurts me when I see that because I know that there's a suffering there. I just know it because there's no clarity. We don't know, right? But now if we have this put together, this income statement put together, we have what we call a level of clarity, which breeds high level decision making. So if I'm looking at this particular financial statement here, and I'm going to go into something that's more, I'm not going to stay here on this one particularly. I want to go into a financial statement that makes sense for somebody who's actually operating today, like a smaller company that's not publicly traded, and we want to get some really good understanding of what that looks like for you. But I want to take you here because even inside of looking at this, we can get a really good understanding of how is revenue performance year over year. Okay, we can look at the trend of it. What's happening? Well, if I just do a broad scope of this thing from the 2020 up until the last trailing 12 months, this is TTM, trailing 12 months, which is the last 12 months of activity. We've gone from 4.6, almost 4.7 million to almost 7.5 million. Well, that's a significant uptrend, right? Now, if I looked at that number, right? If I looked at that number, if I take just a broad scope, 7.5, and I just subtract that 7.5 from 4.7, just averaging that out. That's going to give me a like $2.8 million increase, right? And that $2.8 million increase translates into, we do that, divide that by 4.7. That's a 60% increase over the last few years. in revenue, which is like, wow, well, how are they doing that? And that's pretty good, right? They're doing something pretty well when it comes to revenue, right? And if I'm just looking at this, I'm like, man, these guys are doing fantastic. Now, if you just look at this for your company, you can say, man, well, that's a win, right? You can acknowledge that for yourself in terms of how much you've grown over the last few years, and then break it down per year, how much that translates into growth over the last several years, because we're looking at really just about 4 years, right, of growth here. Over 4 years, it's grown about 60%, which if I do that, break that down, divide that by 4, this rough number, that's about 15% every single year of growth in revenue. Okay, now consistency wise, that's pretty decent. Like you have positive revenue growth every year. Okay, now if you're doing that, if you're gauging that for yourself, and you see that you're winning like year over year like that, it's like, well, I'm doing pretty good, 15%. Well, how do I get to 25%? That would be my next question. How do I get to 25%? Now I can look at certain things inside of our revenue models inside the business to say, okay, well, if I were to go into this particular business unit, this division here that's performing better than everything else and lean in on that division, that might give me an access to boosting my year over year revenue growth by a certain percentage, right? I'm pondering this for my business now. I'm directing myself inside of this area for my business now, right? Because I have this information before me. It's like, yeah, I'm winning here. I'm winning. I'm up. I'm positive 15% a year, just about. All right. And how do I get to 25 now? And that's going to be my next gap that I declare. That whole the biggest room in the world now is a room for improvement. That's going to be my next gap that I declare. Is like, oh, okay, how can I get to 25%? Why 25%? Because I know for myself, I understand that when a business has 25% growth year over year, that is a severely strong business model to have. Okay. Amongst other things, if I'm looking at that. All right. 15% is decent. It's healthy. 25% is extremely healthy. Okay. And that could be my mark. If I need to get to 25% or above, that's what I'm thinking. How can I do that? Okay. And then we can look at all the other things down the line here. So we go from top to bottom. There are things that are impacting revenue. We call like cost of revenue. And these are what we call direct costs or cost of revenue, are things that are associated with you producing the revenue directly. So if you did not produce that revenue, you would not have the cost. That's basically what that means. If you did not produce the revenue, you would not have the cost. So for example, you wouldn't need to fuel up the trucks if you didn't do any loads. So that would be cost of revenue. You wouldn't need to pay drivers if you didn't have to do the loads. Now I said cost of revenue. Okay. And, at certain levels, we can look at, like maintenance costs and everything else, because, over time, we're looking at the maintenance factor to when that truck moves. You wouldn't necessarily need to have it maintained to the degree if you did not do the loads. Okay. So we can look at it from that perspective. So if we look at, they have a pretty high cost of revenue. That's somewhere around what, 80% maybe. 6 out of 7 is what? 85, 86%. That's what that is, right? Is their cost of revenue. So it's pretty high. And for a company of this stature, this size, they can get away with that. Okay. But for you, you might not be able to get away with that for your cost of revenues. Like if you're not a large, like Knight-Swift, they have more than 5,000, trucks on their fleet. Okay. Most companies in this country, like trucking companies in this country, they have less than 10. As a matter of fact, it's about 96% of fleets in this country have less than 10, like carriers, like motor carriers. They have less than 10 on their fleet. And, you know, 90, 97, almost 98% have less than 100 on their fleet. Okay. So we think about somebody like a Knight-Swift, they have more than 5,000 on their fleet. That's typically not going to be the case. Okay. Now, when that's the good thing about that is that when you're a smaller fleet and you have a pretty solid company, like at the base, there is a lot of opportunity to transform that into a winning model. Like if you're already winning, you can win bigger and faster because of the scale of it and the control of your microeconomic capabilities. Okay. Now, what I mean is you have more access to change right now. That's what you have more access to. You have more access to change right now because of the size of your company. You can actually improve this a lot, is what I want to say. All right. So how do you do that? I'm not going to spend any more time here. What I want to do is bring it to ground level for you to see an example of what this would look like for you. Okay. Now, a couple of things I want to talk about here inside of this. Like number one, I said this earlier about understanding what truth in financial reporting looks like. Okay, and also the biggest room in the world, especially at the stage that most of these companies are in, the biggest room in the world is a room for improvement with this. Okay, now I like this company that we're looking at here. These are some financials from a company, actual real company. Okay, and as we can see here, top line number, they broke it down into like what this is how you can actually look at it. Okay, this is what I want you to do typically. Um, Not necessarily on an income statement like this, but we have other management reports that we can deliver that can give you access to information like this to let you know where the money is coming from in your top line. Now, off the bat here, even looking at this and glancing at this, we can see where most of their money is coming from, right? What's the wheelhouse here? What's the wheelhouse? Now, if you're on this call, you can go ahead and put it in the chat. What's the wheelhouse here inside of the inside of their biggest revenue maker, revenue generator? What is that revenue stream that they're that's giving them the most for their efforts? Okay, we can take a look at that for ourselves. And what I also want to thanks guys for putting that in there. What I also want to bring to your attention is that fantastic. Yeah, vacuum truck is their number one revenue source. But I want to bring your attention to, okay, well, one, they're crushing it in this one revenue stream. Okay, they're crushing it in this one revenue stream. And number two, there are opportunities to develop other revenue streams because they have so many. So it looks like there's a heavy focus. Now, I'm just reading this right now, guys, and you might not be able to see the same thing at this level right now. You may or may not be able to. Okay, but there are opportunities here. All right, to improve the other revenue streams inside of this model, since they're doing so well here, I would say that they've got to the point with the one revenue stream that they can afford to position themselves to bolster up heavily on another revenue stream inside the business unit. Okay. Now, most times what I'll see with many like carriers and the business owners that run their company is that they will just get caught up in putting out fires, right? And being in the business day to day, like managing drivers, hiring people, having meetings about, safety and compliance, which are pretty cool to do, but it's like the day-to-day operations, everybody's tied into that. But it's very rare when I have people have high-level conversations regarding, well, what are we going to do with our business now? What are we going to do with this business now? What have we done so far? How have we done here with this? And now what opportunities are we missing? This particular company we're looking at, fantastic business owner, man, because we had conversations about this and he's like, man, well, I can do all this cool stuff this year coming up, because for one, there's one revenue stream that they haven't taken advantage of. This one way at the bottom here, right? Could actually get to perform near this level. Get that, right? And with a lot less effort as well. Okay. We've identified that just by looking at the metrics on this company. Okay. And the opportunities that there are in that market. So what I want to leave you with here is there's always a way to move your business forward and improve the way that you do business. Okay, if you just ask yourself the question, if you just stay in the conversation long enough, if you just take a look and take the time to not be blind here, you open your eyes wide open to be able to see, okay, yeah, I'm missing out on some opportunities. Oh man, I'm crushing it here. How can I systematize this even further so it is solidified and so that I don't even have to think about it anymore for the most part because it's already we're already crushing it here. And then how can I go into the next thing and build it up the same way? Okay. Now, mind you guys, we're just still talking about the top line. It's the one thing here. When I say the top line, I'm just talking about revenue, which is one of the, the king of the financial statement, the king of the income statement, rather. Okay. And that's just the one thing, boosting up the revenue. We haven't even talked about, well, how do we mitigate and manage the outflow? There's a whole lot we can do there as well. Okay. Now, you see some highlights here inside of what I'm looking at. Now, before we move into like some the talk about, well, how to manage the expenses, what I really do want to talk about is, well, how to make sure that you have ironclad financial tracking. Now, there are processes in your company, and there are decisions that are made at a higher level to determine how you're going to manage your tracking of your business. Like what it actually, how are we going to treat this transaction is basically what I mean. When I say the transactions, there are inflows and there are outflows to your company. How are we going to treat each inflow? How are we going to treat each outflow? And then once we've decided on that, are we in integrity with what we said? Okay, so you see a couple of things here in terms of the spreadsheet, and we see highlights on here. Now, this gross trucking revenue, this does not give me access to the same level that everything else underneath it gives me access to, because this is generic. It doesn't tell me anything about where this came from. This says gross trucking revenue, right? But everything underneath this is a sub account that's tracking, well, where is that gross trucking revenue coming from? Okay, so if I see a number up here, which is why it's highlighted, it's like, oh, something's off in terms of the workflow. Somebody's not doing their job right in terms of like that, like the way they're entering information, or the way they're doing their job, the way they're working through the system. Okay, so that gives me an access to go in and say, okay, we can train people. We can teach them how to work with the software and enter data in the way where it's actually lined up. We can go back into the background and see where these technological gaps are, and we can bridge them to make sure that we don't have anything that's leaving like our scope of vision. Because if I look at this, maybe some of this is coming down here, and it could be already on its way, but I don't know. Right? And you want to know these things, guys. That's the point. Okay. So that's one thing. Understanding what it takes to bridge the gap when it comes to the truth in financial reporting. Okay. They're doing so much volume here in transactional flow with this particular company. And it makes a whole lot of sense for them to treat this in a way where they're getting the same level of clarity for each one of these subcategories for the revenue, rather than just having some type of generic thing out here that doesn't give me access to much of anything. Okay. Now, when I know this, then I'm going to have really solid information to go on to make these decisions. So I'll know how these are performing underneath now with clarity. All right. So that's one. There are a couple of things down here, down the line, just like that, highlighted in yellow. You'll see that throughout the process here as I'm looking at this particular statement here. I'm just looking at, okay, well, that is out of alignment. We need to correct that so that we have truth in financial reporting. Anytime you see a yellow, that's what you're bearing witness to, is in terms of, okay, well, we need to go to work here to make sure that there's truth in financial reporting. Right here, direct service costs. Well, there are certain subcategories here that make up direct service costs. I don't know what this is. This is a significant amount, 1.285 million. But where did it go to? Did it go to flowback? Did it go to tank bottom? Did it go pit water? What did it go to? Okay. We want to know this so that we understand, well, what do I need to steer away from that's costing me too much money to produce, right? If it's costing me too much to produce and I'm not really getting revenue from it, specifically if I know it's generating revenue for one of these revenue streams that are not really giving me much, well, I need to cut it out. But I don't know, and I don't have enough information to make that decision right now. Okay. Now, this is what you want to have, though. You want to have that information so you can make that decision. Oh, we got to cut this out in 2025. It doesn't make sense. This supplier, they're fired. Right? You want to go in strong, knowing that's a decision you get to make. And some people don't know. They just get a feeling about what to do, and they're not clear with what to do. I was working with some partners that I really love working with in our company for years, man. And you know, and I really did love working with these guys. And as I was going through this process in my own company, I was looking at it, it's like, man, it doesn't make sense. It costs me too much and they're not producing. Right? I'm spending the money, but it's not giving me the return. And because I had the information, I was able to make that choice. And not go with the feeling of it because for me, it was a hard decision because I really did love working with the people, great, great, fantastic people. It just wasn't producing the outcome. But how did I know? And how was I able to lean in on 100% with making that decision? It's because I had clear information like this. Now, you want to ask yourself the question, are you this ironclad with your financials in your business? Do you have that clarity to go in and say, oh, this is the choice I'm making 100%? I'm standing on it because it's the truth in my reporting. I'm not going in with just the feeling of it. I actually know with certainty this is the decision to make. And it's going to lead to the breakout year of my business because I've chosen to make this decision. Okay. And that's what I really want you to get out of that is that when you have the truth in financial reporting, you can have that power in decision making to take your company to levels at a very fast pace, almost like a quantum leap forward is what it is. Really, it is a quantum leap forward. Okay. And, as we go down this, guys, the thing that I also want to get in this conversation is identifying high impact activities. Okay. As we're doing that. So, number one, things that don't give us clarity, that's a thing that we want to look into. We want to rectify so that we have the clarity in the financial reporting. Okay, we can do that and adjust it. That would be the first decision to make is to tweak that so that we have the clarity in the financial reporting. That wants to happen as soon as possible, like now. Okay, and that's how that wants to go. And now the next thing is, well, what's really impacting me to a high degree? Well, I'm scaling down here. I'm looking at big numbers, percentage-wise. Well, okay, owner operating expense, 48%. Whoa, that's a big number compared to everything else. Now I can take a look at that. I can focus in on that and say, well, okay, that appears to be a large number compared to what we're doing in our business. It appears that way. Now, well, what are other people doing? That's the next question. What are other people doing in the industry? Am I overspending here? Yes or no? It seems like I am because I'm looking at this number and it's pretty large. But I don't know until I go and say, okay, what are other people doing in the industry across the board? Okay. And then I can do that research and find out, well, am I doing well? Well, this is over what people would spend typically um, on just the owner operator expense. Now, for revenue wise. Now, there are different modalities here for what they're doing. Yes, I'm saying what I'm saying is true. But for what you're doing, it may not be. Okay. And this is why you want to go in and know exactly what it is, across the board, like what the industry is telling you, so that you know that where you stand. Because in this scenario, um, if you have a model where you're just using owner operators, if you're going over the OTR, like general freight, and you're doing loads like across the country, you're doing driving work or flatbed work or something like that, and you have a model where you're just doing just solely owner operators, well, then that number could be as high as 65, 70%, okay, of revenue. And that's okay because that's pretty standard. All right. In this particular scenario, I would say no. Okay. And there's deeper to go into this too, as well. Or I'm giving you a surface level thing, but there's another deeper level to go into this to make sure that, okay, we actually are delivering, with intention in terms of like how we're managing our outflows when it comes to this particular expense. All right. And we can dive into that to make sure is what I want to say. Okay. But how do I know to dive into it? I'm coming in here. I'm saying what's really impacting the business first round through. Okay. These are the things. Yeah. Owner operating expenses are high. Let me go look into this. See what we're doing in comparison to other companies in our market. Okay. And now the next thing that we can do here is keep going down the line and look at this too, like gross profit. Not bad. Okay. I say not bad because, they're just under 40%. I'm going to hit this right here. They're just under 40%, which is not really bad in the industry. So we want to know this too, guys. So they're actually doing well here when it comes to this. Now, the question you want to ask yourself is like, okay, what are mine? What are my numbers? Do I know them? Am I doing well? If I'm not doing well, how can I get to the number that actually makes sense for us? All right. So guys, the next thing here, I'm highlighting things that are out of alignment as well. There's some things here that are showing up that are like, okay, this doesn't make sense. Guys, get this. This is what it looks like for real. right? With companies like you guys, this is what it's going to look like for you guys, and it's going to make you want to come in here and identify some things that you want to correct. Like, so why would an expense be negative? Like, it's like I'm making money off the insurance here. That's what that looks like, right? That's basically what that is. So is that the case? Is that really the case? Is what I want to see. So that's where we can drive in and see exactly what's happening here, because typically insurance would be a significant expense for most of us in this industry, right? You're going to pay somewhere like I've seen it. You can pay somewhere around 20% of revenue in insurance in some cases, and if you're doing well, you're actually under 10% of revenue in insurance expense. Okay. Now, this gives you a kind of a footprint on where to dive in when you're looking at financials through your business to indicate performance, like identify like, well, am I performing or not here? But once we get all this information, once we go down the line and get this, guys, same thing here, another one that shows up like that, that's a big deal. Um, once we go down the line and get everything that we need and prove that this is the truth in financial reporting, then we can go to we want to look at a couple of things that I like to look at. Okay. Like I want to look at return on assets for one. Like for how much assets I have, or how much is that producing me? It's a real good indicator for me to know like how healthy my business is performing. Now, if I'm getting a 25% or more return on assets, I'm actually doing pretty well. If I'm actually getting a return on equity of 25% or more, I'm doing well. Okay. Healthy financially. Okay. And then if I'm not doing that, then the question is, well, how can I do that in the future year? All right. And what are the things that are impacting that? So now, guess what? When I'm looking at these numbers and weighing that, the KPIs against what they should be versus what they are, well, then I can actually dive in and see, well, why is that the case? A lot of the times what'll happen is we'll have situations where we're not making as much money on a certain division or a certain aspect of freight because we just haven't trained our drivers well enough. And then we can go in directly to that and say, well, I can train my drivers now, okay? Or you can have issues like this whole administrative process where I'm paying a lot in administrative wages and the people that are performing administrative processes aren't really doing the job. So why am I paying so much? Or if I'm not getting that result, that outcome that I need to have, right? I can cut the cost there and get a few key people that do well, as opposed to continuing to bleed in this area and not have the outcome that I want. Okay. Now, hopefully, what I'm saying here, guys, in this section of it, I want to wrap up here. Okay, it gives you an access to number one. Okay, number one, there is a way to get to another level. That's what I want you to really be left with in this conversation. Number one, there's a way definitively for you to get to another level in whatever it is you're doing, whatever it is you're up to. Okay. I want you to have that belief, have that faith that no matter where you are, whether you feel as though you're not doing as well as what you want to be, or even if you're doing well but want to get to the next level, there is a way. 100%. There's a way to get there when we actually dive into what has been happening up until now, because every time I've gone into this with any company, I see, there has been like some type of missed opportunity or wasted moments inside of the business that are leading to um, the ability to move that business from where they are to another level. Okay, that's number one. And number two is like, well, what's it going to take to get all your systems tight enough to have the truth reflected in your financial reporting, which gives you truth in your operational performance. Okay. What systems are you putting in place? What systems do you have in place to make sure that this is the truth? Are you looking at it in a way where you're getting the truth out of it consistently and reliably? And if not, what are you doing about it? Okay. That's number two. All right. Number three is, guys, faith and belief. All right. That's the last thing I want to leave you with. Faith and belief that you can go out here and crush it in your business beyond whatever you thought possible each and every day, because you have everything that it takes to move that forward, and you have every resource at your fingertips to move it forward. All right. I want you to have that faith and belief because it is there. You only have to do the looking. All right. You don't have to be blind. You can do the looking. You can have the outcome. Guys, it's been great being with you today. Once again, Cheston Bolden, Trucking CFO Tax Strategist, your accounting superhero. I will talk to you next week. I'm hoping you got great value out of this call today. Take care, guys, and talk to you next week. Bye-bye.